My father always used to say that monsters exist, and that they could look like any one of us. When I was younger, he used to read me all sorts of bedtime stories, but there's only one that I can distinctly remember. He fished out an old book from the attic and came and sat himself on a stool next to my bed. As he blew off the dust and flicked through the mottled pages, I sat in anticipation. My father found the page he was looking for, cleared his throat, and began the story. Candles flickered against the dimly lit room, casting shadows that gently danced along the cobbled brick walls. Only a thick mist was visible through the wooden shutters, the loud crackling of a fire, and chatter echoing throughout the room. The only two men in the tavern sat together on a table in the center and waited impatiently for the third to come with their drinks. The owner of the tavern laid unconscious, locked away in the pantry as the men helped themselves to the large beer kegs they had hoisted earlier into the main room. These men were knights of the kingdom, but certainly not the noble kind. The largest and strongest of the three, Sir Robert, tilted dangerously on his stool in a drunken stupor as he roared in laughter while Sir Tristan, a tall and slender man, retold the story of his torture of a peasant who refused to lick his boots clean. Whilst the two men conversed loudly, the third one quietly walked over to the table. He was small, emaciated, and a meager man. He carefully set down the tankards he had refilled for the other two men and sat with a weakly forced smile across his face. Sir Robert, having recovered from his bout of laughter, turned to the small man with a cruel grin. "How about you? What was it, Sir David? Any good stories to entertain us with?" The small man opened his mouth to correct Sir Robert, but decided against it, as there wouldn't be much point. "None that can best your tales of heroics, I'm sure, Sir Robert," the tall man gently croaked back as he shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Sir Tristan slipped a snide remark under his breath, which the small man chose to ignore. After a moment of uncomfortable silence, Sir Tristan cleared his throat and leaned forward, placing his arm on the table. "How about the demon of the Wailing Woods?" Sir Robert perked up. "Aye, go on then," he loudly replied, taking a large gulp from his tankard, leaving a thick coat of foam covering his beard. The large knight had heard the story before, but it wouldn't hurt to have it told again to stall his creeping boredom. Sir Tristan shifted forward on his stool and began. "Stories of monsters are often tales of large and ugly beasts that are, eventually and always slain by a noble, strong knight. Dragons, trolls, werewolves, the lot. But not the demon of the Wailing Woods. No man has ever seen its true form, and they say those who lay eyes upon it will die on the very spot from shock." The small man smirked, knowing this was a very generous addition to the story, but let Sir Tristan continue. "Those who are foolish enough to venture too far into the woods will find themselves quickly lost in a thick, impenetrable mist. Then they will begin to hear a voice, gentle, beckoning them further into the forest with lies of safety. Once they are lured in, they find themselves unable to move, and the last thing they see is a shadowy figure creeping through the gray veil towards them. And then, just like that, the mist disappears and the demon along with it. They say the anguished screams and cries of its victims can be heard for miles around. What's more is that the bodies they find are always mutilated beyond recognition, violated in every conceivable way. That's why the demon of the Wailing Woods is the most terrifying of all. You don't know you're a dead man until the jaws of death are clamping tight around your throat." Sir Tristan leant forward and blew out the candle, lighting the table for effect, Sir Robert chuckling as he did so. "Right, time for some more booze," Sir Robert noisily exclaimed, as he brought both hands down heavily onto the table. The large knight attempted to stand up to get another drink, but found himself unable to do so. As concern slowly spread across his face, Sir Robert and Sir Tristan both began to wobble in their chairs, scratching at their throats. They fell backward and quickly found themselves paralyzed, unable to move a single muscle. All they could muster was muffled grunts as they took heavy, panicked breaths. An inhumanely wide and cruel smile spread across the small man's face. He calmly reached into his satchel, which lay on the floor next to him, fishing out 2 gags and an assortment of foul and bizarre-looking tools. Their breathing quickly became more desperate. The 2 knights had laid eyes on the demon, but had not died on the spot as the story had claimed they would. It would have been more merciful if they had. Eventually, the mist retreated from the town once morning came, and just like that, the demon was gone. My old man passed away a while ago, and even now that story stirs in my memory, particularly strong. We moved around a lot when I was young, just me and my dad, but everywhere we went seemed to be plagued by unfortunate happenings. Murders once every few years. My dad would always chalk it up to our bad luck and move away before anything bad could come our way. But it really wasn't just bad luck. A case that had gone cold a long time ago had been reopened again and solved last year. 2 men murdered in a bar late at night. Bartender had been struck unconscious and had no recollection of what happened. Culprit was connected to several other gruesome murders across the country. I knew for years before I went to the police, but only after he had passed. I'll never accept who he really was, but I'd be lying if I said he couldn't tell a damn good story. And as always, boys and girls, thank you for watching. If you liked today's story, give it a thumbs up. To hear more stories like this one, hit the subscribe button, making sure you turn on that bell for notifications of when I publish new stories every Tuesday and Thursday. To support this channel, click the link for our Patreon in the description box below. Until next time, sweet dreams.